Imagine this, a troubled boy abandoned by his mother, taken in by an ex-convict. They form an unlikely bond, but what if everything you thought you knew about their lives was about to change? This is a tale of redemption, broken trust, and a shocking twist that'll have you questioning everything. Just when you think you've seen it all, bam! You won't believe what happens next. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Dropping a like and a comment is the least you can do to show some love. And like we always say, even if some stories seem the same, they ain't never the same when I'm the one telling them. The movie starts with Eddie Palmer coming back to his old hometown. He steps up to the door, and there's his grandson, waiting. Vivian, his grandma, gives him a big hug. She's so happy to see him home. Eddie walks into his old room. Everything's exactly the same, like time hasn't even passed. He looks out the window and sees the neighbor, Shelley, with her son. This family is a complete mess. Vivian, shaking her head, says, "If it weren't for that kid, I would have kicked Shelley and her boyfriend out of this trailer a long time ago." Later, as Eddie eats, his grandmother hits him with some tough love. "You gotta find a job, Eddie. Sitting around feeling sorry for yourself won't fix anything." Ouch. The next day, Eddie sets out to find a job, part of the deal with his parole. But finding a job isn't as easy as it sounds. He spends the day hunting for work, but it's all dead ends. By evening, Eddie's at the bar, drowning his sorrows in drinks. He bumps into some old friends. They talk about the good old days. Daryl, the guy whose son is all about football, says Eddie's famous touchdown was only recently broken. Then Coles, another old friend who's now a sheriff, shows up. He's happy Eddie's free. Maybe things can finally get better for him. But then, cue dramatic entrance. Shelley walks into the bar, and before you know it, she's all over Eddie. Classic. The morning after his wild night, Eddie steps out of the trailer. Vivian sees him and raises an eyebrow. It's only 10 in the morning. She's not impressed. Vivian wakes her grandson up, telling him it's time to go to church. Sam, Shelley's son, tags along too. At church, everyone whispers when they see Eddie. It's clear Sam doesn't fit in with the other kids. After the service, Daryl pulls Eddie aside, noticing something's off with Sam. The kid's acting different, like a girl. Eddie's confused but keeps quiet. Back at the trailer, Vivian gives Sam some food. She's kind to him, even though he's not exactly family. Eddie, though, is still stuck in the old prison mindset. Vivian hands him a shopping list and a bit of money. Eddie doesn't want to take it, but he hasn't found a job yet. As he leaves the house, Eddie spots Shelley and her boyfriend leaving for who knows where. At the store, Eddie notices a help wanted sign. He walks up, hopeful, but the manager shoots him down fast, saying the position's already taken. Eddie knows the truth. He's just a man with a criminal record. Sam is combing Vivian's hair when Eddie walks in. Vivian tells Eddie that Sam will be staying with them since his mom left again. Eddie notices Sam playing with dolls and says, "That's not for boys." Sam, though, doesn't see it that way. At dinner, Vivian asks Eddie if he's found a job yet. This question gets under Eddie's skin. It's like she's giving him a test he keeps failing. The last straw? Vivian accuses him of stealing. That night, Eddie spots a janitor job posting at the bar. He decides to go for the interview the next morning. But of course, because of his criminal record, he's turned down. Feeling desperate, Eddie goes to see Mr. Sibbs and Mr. Forbes, the school principal. He tells them he never broke the rules during his 13 years in prison. Mr. Forbes is shocked to learn Eddie was a scholar at the University of Louisiana and the best player in Riverside for 2 years. "I'll try to help you," Mr. Forbes says. Maybe, just maybe, things are looking up for Eddie. At dinner that evening, Sam tells Vivian she was wrong to accuse Eddie of stealing. "You made a mistake," Sam says, speaking up for Eddie. Not long after, Eddie gets a call. Good news. His job application has been approved. He's now the janitor at the school. Sam also goes to that school, but he's not like the other boys. He gets along with the girls, but the boys don't understand him. Teacher Maggie Hayes always sticks up for Sam, though. Every Sunday, Eddie and his grandmother go to church. Some people suggest Vivian should contact Child Protective Services and send Sam to an orphanage. Vivian gets so angry at that idea. How dare they? One morning, Eddie finds Sam watching cartoons about fairy princesses and playing with dolls. He comments, "Miss Vivian is still sleeping." It gets to Eddie, making him feel tired and uneasy. When Eddie goes to check on his grandmother, he finds something he's been dreading. Vivian has passed away. The room feels too quiet, too still. The loss hits Eddie hard. The funeral happens soon after. Vivian was well respected in the community, and many people are grieving her loss. Eddie and Sam feel the weight of her death, and it's hard to find comfort. At work, Eddie's employer tells him not to come in tomorrow. But at home, Sam is quiet, looking through Vivian's makeup bag. Eddie doesn't say a word, just heads to the bar and stays out late. When he returns home, Everything in the house is just as it was. Vivian's things in their places, like she's still around. Sam is curled up, peacefully sleeping on the couch. The next morning, Eddie tells Sam to pack his things. Sam is confused, not sure what's going on. Eddie explains that he went to the police and talked to his old friend Coles. The boy's mother left 2 weeks ago and isn't answering calls. Coles says he'll have to call Child Protective Services, and Sam will be sent to an orphanage. Sam starts to panic. He doesn't want to leave, but Eddie doesn't know what to do either. Both of them are stuck. Sam isn't too worried, but Eddie feels deep down that he has to step up for the boy. He knows that it's now his responsibility to care for Sam. They head back home together, both of them unsure about what's next. Eddie starts adjusting to this new life. Sam, surprisingly, is pretty independent. He gets himself ready for school and catches the bus without needing help. Eddie goes to work, which helps take his mind off everything. Later that day, Sam's teacher, Maggie, drives him home to check on how Sam is living. Eddie starts to feel anxious when she arrives. While Sam is watching cartoons about fairy princesses, Maggie asks Eddie if he's managing okay. She doesn't know where Shelly is either. Before leaving, Maggie gives Eddie her number in case he needs anything. Eddie spends the rest of the night trying to call Shelly, but no luck. He's not thrilled about playing nanny, but it's clear there's no one else who can take care of Sam. Sam never goes anywhere without his dolls. One evening, he asks Eddie, "Do you know when Mom will come back?" Eddie sighs and shakes his head. He doesn't know, and the truth is, he doesn't even know where to begin looking. Eddie barely knew his own mother, and he misses his father, who passed away a long time ago. Vivian missed him too. Eddie says goodnight to Sam, and then flips through an old scrapbook of family pictures. It's full of memories, newspaper clippings, photos of him as a football star, but that's all behind him now. The next morning, Eddie drives Sam to school. On the way, Sam excitedly tells him that his favorite thing in the world is watching cartoons about fairy princesses. "My mom even got me this lunchbox with princess pictures on it," Sam says. Eddie smiles, but feels a little sad inside. Later, Lucille, Coles' wife, stops by and asks Eddie if it's okay for Sam to play with their daughter, Emily. "Sam thinks of you as his dad," she explains, looking at Eddie for approval. Eddie feels a strange mix of emotions, part proud, part overwhelmed, but he agrees. It's also complicated, but deep down, Eddie knows Sam needs him. At 5 p.m., Eddie heads to pick up Sam, just like they planned. Lucille invites him inside. Eddie doesn't want to go in, but he can't say no. It would be rude. So he ends up stuck in a toy tea party with Emily and feels a little silly, but he's relieved when it's finally over. While he's there, Eddie notices something strange. Sam is playing with Emily, not the boys. It's odd, but Eddie doesn't say anything. Later, Eddie decides to take Sam to a football game. He wants to show Sam how he used to play and teach him about the sport. At the game, Eddie is surprised to see Maggie there too. She invites Eddie and Sam to go bowling sometime. Eddie doesn't mind, but his mind is on other things. As they sit in the stands, Daryl leans over and whispers to Eddie, warning him to stay away from Shelly. "She's nothing but trouble," Daryl says. But Eddie isn't worried about Shelly. His focus is on her son. On the field, the new football champion is playing. He broke Eddie's old record. Eddie can't help but ask Daryl if he knows where the wrestlers are living now. The past seems to be following him everywhere. Eddie had tried, but he couldn't find either the father or the son. It felt like they just disappeared. Daryl tells him to let the past go. He says Eddie didn't deserve the time he served because the guy who hurt him was always bragging about his father's money. It made Eddie angry, but he didn't show it. Later, Eddie watches Sam trying to copy the cheerleaders at the game. It's cute, but Eddie wonders if he's doing it right. After the game, Eddie takes Sam home before heading to the bar. He meets up with his friends, but things get awkward when Daryl starts drinking too much and acting out. Sibs, the bartender, isn't happy, and Eddie knows it's time to take Daryl home. The next morning, Sam wakes Eddie up, excited for their bowling trip with Maggie. At the bowling alley, Sam is having the time of his life while Maggie and Eddie talk. Eddie shares a bit about his past, telling Maggie that he went to college for a while before life threw him into a different kind of education. Maggie opens up too, talking about her failed marriage. She says that after her divorce, she wanted to be closer to her family. For a moment, Eddie wonders if maybe Maggie and him could have something more. Eddie is slowly getting used to his new life with Sam. Taking care of Sam has become his new normal. At work, Eddie has to apologize to Sibs for Daryl's behavior, but he doesn't mind. It's just another thing he has to deal with. Meanwhile, Forbes, the school principal, talks to Sam. He asks if Sam is okay living with Eddie now. Sam doesn't really understand the question, but he says he's fine. Every few weeks, Eddie has to check in with the police as part of his parole. It's one of the rules. Eddie doesn't like it, but it's something he has to do. Sam notices though, and one day after school, he asks Eddie why he has to go to the police station so often. Eddie sighs and explains that when he was younger, he made some really bad choices, including trying to steal from someone, but he paid for his mistakes. Sam thinks about it for a moment. then confesses that he took a toy from a classmate and feels guilty about it. Eddie smiles softly and tells him that if he returns the toy, it'll make him feel better. Sam listens carefully, and for the first time, Eddie realizes he's not just looking out for Sam, he's helping him grow. Eddie finally feels like he has a real purpose. He feels needed, and that makes everything feel a little easier. Eddie and Sam were up early, cooking breakfast together. Eddie made sure Sam didn't eat too much candy. He knew it was bad for his health. Sam, though, wasn't too happy about it. He wanted pancakes and candy, but Eddie was firm. "You need good food to grow strong," he said. Later, Sam returned the toy he had taken from school. Eddie was proud of him for doing the right thing. It was a small step, but it meant a lot. Then Sam's birthday came around. Maggie and Emily came over to celebrate. Eddie gave Sam a gift, his very own ukulele. Sam didn't really care about music, but he loved the gesture. It was the first gift that felt personal to him. While the kids played, Maggie quietly pulled Eddie aside. She asked about Sam's mother. Eddie hesitated for a moment before answering. "She ran away when Sam was just 5, he explained softly. "Vivian took care of him after that, became his mom." Eddie's words hung in the air. Sam had been through so much already, and Eddie felt the weight of that. He wanted to be the one to help Sam, to show him what family really meant. For the first time in a long time, Eddie felt like he was where he was supposed to be. Maggie decided to help Eddie sort through the mail. As they flipped through the letters, one envelope caught Eddie's eye. It was from a lawyer. Inside, they learned that Vivian had left her house and all her property to the church. Eddie was shocked. He never expected that. The lawyer said that once the house was sold, Eddie would have 30 days to move out. This news hit Eddie hard. He couldn't believe Vivian would leave everything to the church. It felt like losing her all over again. At school, things weren't going much better. Sam was picked on by some of the other kids because he didn't look like them. Eddie saw it happen and couldn't just stand there. He marched up to the bullies, and with one look, they froze. They were terrified of him. Eddie didn't care if they were scared. He just wanted to protect Sam, and in that moment, he did. Sam looked up at him, grateful and a little surprised. Eddie's heart softened. Maybe he wasn't such a lost cause after all. At home, Sam excitedly told Eddie that he wanted to write a letter to the Fairy Princess show to try to become a contestant. Eddie tried to talk him out of it. He told Sam that the show was for boys now, not girls. But Sam didn't see the problem. "I like the princess," Sam said simply. Eddie sighed. He didn't know how to explain it to him. Later at the store, Sam picked out a princess costume for Halloween. Eddie wasn't sure what to say. "That's not really for boys, Sam," he said gently. But Sam didn't listen. He loved the costume and didn't care what anyone else thought. As they were leaving the store, an old woman saw them and shook her head. "You're a criminal," she muttered to Eddie. "You don't have any right to take care of that boy." Eddie froze. But before he could react, Sam stepped forward, angry. "Leave us alone," Sam shouted, his voice firm. Eddie was surprised. He hadn't expected Sam to stand up for him. That moment meant a lot to Eddie. Sam believed in him. For the first time, Eddie started believing in himself, too. Maybe he was a good person after all. In class, Sam proudly told the teacher that he was going to be Princess Penelope for the holiday. Eddie tried to convince him to choose another costume, but Sam wouldn't budge. Eddie didn't like it, but he had no choice. Sam had made up his mind, and Eddie had to accept it. At the party, things didn't go as smoothly. The other kids started making fun of Sam, calling him Samantha. Eddie could feel his heart sinking as he saw Sam getting upset. But then, something unexpected happened. The teacher walked in, dressed as Mr. Forbes, to support Sam. She smiled and nodded at Sam, showing everyone that it was okay to be different. Later that evening, Maggie invited Sam and Eddie over for dinner. Sam was so happy. He stuffed his face with sweets, his eyes sparkling. But then, Maggie took a deep breath and asked Eddie, "What did you do to end up in jail?" Eddie paused for a moment, unsure how to answer. The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken truths. It was really hard for Eddie to talk about his past, but he found the courage to do so. He explained that in university, he was the star of the football team, the one everyone looked up to. But that all changed when he got injured. Doctors told him he could never play football again, and that was the start of his downfall. Without football, Eddie felt lost. He fell into a deep depression and returned home, where he started making bad choices. There was a guy in their group who always boasted about his rich father and how much money was in his safe. One day, the group decided to break into the house, but the father came home early. Eddie, in a panic, attacked him. That mistake would haunt him for the rest of his life. Later that night, Sam had fallen asleep, and Maggie suggested Eddie stay over. It was late, and he didn't want to drive back. The next day, after school, Emily invited Sam over again. Sam was excited and happy to go. It felt like things were finally starting to get better for him. During a break at work, Eddie looked up how to become a legal guardian for a child. He was serious about it. Later, he stopped by class to talk to Maggie. He asked for her help, saying that he wanted to donate Vivian's things to charity. But then, something unexpected happened. Sam ran into the house, crying. He had been hurt by Daryl. Eddie wasn't going to just let it go. Maggie tried to talk him out of going to the bar, but Eddie was determined. At the bar, Daryl tried to excuse his actions by calling Sam abnormal, but Eddie wasn't having any of it. He taught Daryl a serious lesson. The other guys barely managed to pull Eddie off him. Eddie wasn't done though. He turned to Coles and threatened him. He said he would go to the police and tell them that Coles and Daryl were in on the crime together if they didn't leave Sam alone. When Eddie came back home, Maggie immediately knew something had happened. She told him that there were always peaceful ways to solve problems. But Eddie had made up his mind. Maggie, seeing that he wasn't going to change, decided to leave. The next morning, Eddie sat down with Sam. He told him that he wasn't to blame for what happened. Daryl was the one who was wrong. Eddie explained that Daryl was just a bad person. Eddie then decided to help Sam with his dream, writing a letter to the fairy princess show. Sam had always wanted this, but no one had ever helped him before. Just as they were working on it, there was a knock at the door. It was Shelley, looking terrible. Despite everything, she wanted to take Sam back. Sam was upset, but Eddie told him that he could visit any time. Sam hugged Eddie tightly, and Eddie could feel his heart breaking. He knew Sam needed to be with his mother, even though it hurt. As Shelley looked at the ukulele Eddie had given Sam, she suddenly remembered that she had forgotten her son's birthday. She quickly lied, saying she had a gift for him too. Eddie felt crushed and tried to distract himself with work. Finally, mustering all his courage, he went to Maggie and told her that Shelley had come back. Unfortunately, their talk didn't go well. Eddie, frustrated, went to the bar but changed his mind before entering. The next morning, Eddie stepped out onto the porch and saw Sam. The boy looked down, sad, and told Eddie that his mom's boyfriend had thrown out his lunchbox. Jerry, Sam's stepdad, thought he was a disgrace, but Eddie stepped in to support Sam. Eddie told him he would take him to school, and Sam shared that he and his mom were moving in with Jerry. That meant Sam would have to go to a different school. Eddie spent the whole day thinking about everything that had happened. As he looked at Jerry, he realized that the man was just as bad as Shelley. Eddie could see that neither of them were fit to take care of Sam. Later that day, he got the shocking news. Child Protective Services had taken Sam away. Shelley was crying, and Eddie rushed to the station to find out what was going on. At the station, a woman from Child Protective Services told Eddie that the court hearings would happen on Monday. The judge would decide whether Sam should stay with his mother or be placed in an orphanage. That evening, Eddie went to Shelley's trailer. He asked her if she would give him custody of Sam, but this made Shelley angry. She didn't believe Eddie was any better than she was. Eddie tried to explain that the court would never let her have Sam back because of her illness. Shelley started screaming, saying she would give up all her bad habits for her son, and kicked Eddie out of her trailer. Eddie didn't know where else to go, so he went to Maggie. Of course, Maggie agreed to go with him to court. In court, the judge believed Eddie had changed for the better, but until Eddie found a stable home and finished his probation, he couldn't apply for custody of Sam. Eddie, with tears in his eyes, explained that he knew what it felt like to be abandoned, and he just wanted to care for Sam. Unfortunately, the judge denied his request. Suddenly, Shelley burst into the courtroom. She started begging the judge to give her son back. She claimed Sam was a special boy who struggled with his peers and that he needed his mother. The judge, feeling sorry for Shelley, decided to send Sam back home with her. Every day, Eddie could hear Shelley and Jerry arguing in the trailer. When Eddie realized that Shelley had fallen back into her old bad habits, he decided to take Sam away. They drove for a long time, stopping only at a gas station. Eddie called Maggie and found out that Shelley had reported him to the police. Now, Eddie was wanted. The law would most likely side with Shelley because she was Sam's mother. Eddie promised Sam that everything would be okay, and then made the difficult choice to turn himself in to the police. Coles understood that Shelley was not in a good state of mind and decided to take Sam to Maggie temporarily. Eddie was arrested. Seeing this, Sam begged the police to let Eddie go. He shouted at his mother, telling her that she never loved him. Sam cried and ran after the police car for a long time, and Eddie could hardly hold back his tears. Eddie found himself behind bars again, but soon, Coles came to his cell and told him he could go free. Shelley had changed her story and said she had asked Eddie to drive Sam to buy food, so all charges against him were dropped. Now, Eddie and Coles were even. Eddie rushed to Maggie, who was taking care of Sam. Not long after, Shelley showed up at the doorstep, but Sam didn't want to talk to her. Shelley had thought long and hard and finally decided to give Eddie custody of Sam because he was a good man. It was a tough decision for Shelley because no matter what, she still loved her son, but she knew it would be better for Sam this way. The mother and son shared a heartfelt hug. Now, Eddie could officially become Sam's father. Things were also going well at Eddie's job. As Eddie and Sam prepared to move out of Vivian's house, they found a letter in the mailbox from the Fairy Princess show for Sam. Sam was overjoyed. What would you do if you took in a troubled kid only to have your life turned upside down by a shocking twist? Would you stand by him or walk away to protect yourself? Drop a like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I want to know how you'd handle this wild turn of events.